So, radians. Before this point, you might have only used degrees to measure radians. Um, from grade 12, at least in Ontario, grade 12 and up, you're going to be using radians a lot more, even past university and whatnot. Don't ask me why. So, what is a radian? A radian is essentially an angle, a different way of measuring angles. And a radian is essentially the relationship between a selected arc length and the radius of a circle. You could also think of it as like, say, we take this uh, whole thing as an arc length. We use this whole thing as an arc length. You can also think of it as how many times greater is this arc length than the radius, which is why we can come up with this formula. Angle theta in radians equals arc length divided by radius. So you can find out how many times greater the arc length is than the radius. All right, let me tell you how many radians is in one full circle. So we know that the arc length of one full circle is equal to the circumference. What is the circumference though? It's 2 pi r, the circumference formula. Divide by r, these cancel out, and essentially 2 pi radians is in one full circle. If you divide both sides, wait, oh, no, don't divide both sides because you can't divide anything. Okay, so you would also probably know that one full circle is equal to 360 degrees. So let's just say this is, I'll just write it somewhere else. 360 degrees equals 2 pi radians. If you divide both sides by 2, pi now equals 180 degrees. Quick little thing before I show how to convert between radians and degrees. If we divide both sides by 180, divide this. So 180 over 180 degrees equals pi over 180 degrees. 1 degree equals roughly pi over 180 degrees. And that is roughly 0.017 radians. If you don't see radians, if you like, when we use radians, usually we don't write the unit, unlike degrees. So if there's nothing there, you could probably assume it's radians. Anyway, likewise, if we take this, divide both sides by pi, right? So this now cancels out. And now we essentially get 1 radian equals 57.3 degrees. So that's a little thing. Okay, so these might not actually be little things. They're, you could actually use these to convert from degrees to radians. Shoot, that looks kind of ugly. Let's try and write it a little better. So let's see. Maybe, okay, maybe I make like a little box or something. Yeah, okay. Okay, so 180 degrees equals I radians. Divide both sides by 180 degrees. You get 1 degree equals I over 180. So yeah, you just simplify the fraction 240 over 180 to get your answer in radians. I don't really have a fast way to simplify it, unfortunately, so you could just like, oh, divide by 10, that's 8. That's horrific, holy. 18, divide that by 2, and divide those by 3. Actually, like that. 4 over 3. Can't simplify it anymore. Equals x. So that is 240 degrees in radians. 4 times pi over 3. Okay, let's try another one. 336 degrees equals x radians. Convert that to radians, right? Pi over 180. Doesn't really matter if you write the degrees or not. You know, this ain't physics. You don't really need the units unless you're doing like a word problem, apparently. Right, so now you're gonna do 336 pi over 180. You're gonna simplify the fraction 336 over 180. You know, divide that by 2, 168 over 90. And then now you have 84 over 45. And you can divide those by 3. Uh, and then you can just divide those by 3. At 20 over 15, you can't simplify that anymore. So now bring in the pi, bring down the equal sign. So 336 degrees equals 28 times pi divided by 15. This is probably the simplest way to convert from radians to degrees and vice versa. So just remember these three. Remember these three. Yeah. So, okay, how about we summarize like right here? So the main things you gotta know: theta angle in radians equals arc length over radius. Um, you know, a radian is a relation between an arc length and the radius. Um, 1 degree equals I over 180. Um, radians, right? 1 degree equals this many radians. 1 radian equals this many degrees, which is roughly to 57.3, and this is roughly equal to 0.017. Um, and gotta remember that pi equals 180 degrees. Pi radians equals 180 degrees. That's your summary right here. Pretty simple when you boil it down. These 4 different things. You use these two to convert from radians to degrees and degrees to radians. If you watch this video, please tell me how I can improve. Um, if you were to, okay, never mind. Just, leave a comment. How can I improve? And thank you for watching.